Hello, and welcome to the Thought Leader Recruitment Podcast, where we delve into the minds of those reshaping the recruitment landscape. I'm your host, Sam Bylett, and today we're joined by Keith Langbo, the visionary CEO and founder of Kelaca. Keith, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sam. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. So, we've spoken before in the past. For our listeners, could you just walk us through what Kelaca does and the industries you serve?
Sure, I'll do my best. So, Kelaca started 13 years ago, headquartered in Raleigh, North Carolina, in the US of A. And I relocated to London area or just southwest of London last year, about a year ago, to focus on our EMEA expansion. We do recruitment solutions. We are cross verticals, cross industries. The majority of our business is in the tech sectors. We do a recruitment offering. We have a executive search offering. We have a end-to-end or embedded solution that we do with a lot of our partners as well, where we go in and take over their recruitment teams and build them for them and run them for them. And now, since I've moved here a year ago, we have a global expansion offering as well, helping companies that are trying to land and expand in the U.S. We help them as their U.S.-based talent arm. Both. I've been in recruiting for about 25 years, and so I am. We're kind of talking before. I'm now the old man. All of a sudden, giving the old man wisdom. I sound like be honored to sound like my dad or whatever, but I feel like now I'm the old guy saying stuff that the old people used to say to me. 13 years ago, I had been running someone else's company for a decade in the recruitment space, a staffing company. And I say that with a little bit of twinge in my voice because I'm not really a fan of most recruiters or most staffing companies. I was in the industry when it was really about connections and understanding people and relationships. And then somewhere amidst LinkedIn and job boards and internet and all of the changes and vendor management systems and ATSs, it became a lot more of a transactional business and versus relationship and consultative. And so 13 years ago, I made the decision to spin out on my own and try to focus on those relationships and that consultative nature of the recruitment space. So again, while I say that we're in recruitment and we have those offerings, we do a lot of recruitment consulting in our end-to-end recruitment management program, where we go in and help companies build out their programs, build out the tech, the process. Because I'm just a big fan of trying to help everyone get better at this. And I think that we can do it in such a way that is quick and efficient and leveraging AI or technology without taking away the human experience and without treating people like products. I think we can still treat people like people and treat them the right way and give them a great experience. And so that's why I spun out 13 years ago to start my own. And we do a lot of, we call it culture first recruitment, where we focus purely on the culture alignment, culture add versus culture fit within a business. So we do a lot of assessment work up front to understand how our clients and their companies or their teams are built and all that kind of stuff. And then we do a lot of work on the candidate side to do that using behavioral and psychometrics and things to help us understand, what behaviors are going to work best and what characteristics are going to be, the best ad for the team and things like that. But long-winded way, I thought we could do it better. So I spun out 13 years ago to do it.
Yeah, interesting. And talking about candidates, it's such a kind of competitive market these days. How do you help candidates truly stand out?
How do we help candidates stand out? Well, I think in doing what I just talked about, that culture first part. And so I think, there's a lot of people that maybe have a good resume that say they're a great developer in XYZ language or whatever it may be, or they're a great, project manager or whatever it may be. But I think where people stand out is when we can really find that great alignment when it comes to the behaviors, right? I use the example. A lot of people meet me and they assume that I'm an extrovert and people person and that I would make a good salesperson because I can talk and all those things. But in reality, if you do a psychometric assessment on me, you'll find that I'm very introspective and on the introverted side, and then I'm more of a data and process person. Now I can fake it and I can modify my behaviors because I have experience and I have desire and hopefully some intelligence. So I can go into an interview and probably get most sales manager jobs, especially in the recruitment space. However, if you look at how I'm hardwired and what really is required to be successful in that role, it's not a match. And so if you want to make someone stand out, put them in a role that they're actually hardwired to do. and they will excel. They will innovate. They will take initiative. They will have grit. They will have drive. They will have all those things that people look for when you get that job fit correct. And so, how do we make them stand out? By making sure that they're being presented for the right roles and they really know where they're going to excel so that they can be their best natural self, I guess. Aside from that, obviously, we help candidates with their resumes. We help candidates with their job search strategy. We help candidates with their interview skills and interview preparation and things like that to help them stand out. But I I think the whole idea of resumes and interviews is kind of dead in the way that it works or the way that it's worked for years. Interviews are set up to reward the charismatic, the outgoing, the people that can really put on a show, if you will. And there's nothing against those people, but it doesn't do well for those that maybe are even better for the role or could add more to the team or whatever it may be if they don't, happen to show up and give their best thing. Or I always joke this is my second cup of coffee this morning, and I have to time that because if I had gotten into my third cup of coffee, I'd be super jittery on this call and you wouldn't want to talk to me or listen to me. Same thing with an interview. If I don't time it right, or if I have a bad morning or woke up in the wrong side of bed, maybe my best interview self doesn't show up. Doesn't mean I'm not qualified for the job, though. Just like resumes. Maybe not everyone's a professional writer. Maybe my resume is not great. And in today's world, it's extra confusing because candidates are leveraging AI to improve their resumes or improve their cover letters. And so I think the real standout factor is when you find that perfect match and you can put that candidate in front of a role that they're made for.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you've spot on with that actually. Like actually putting candidates in that correct role is the crucial thing there without a doubt. And then you touched on, yeah, like if you're not that kind of outgoing, kind of likable person in an interview, but you are kind of, you've got everything else that company wants, that is difficult, isn't it? From to cross that way. So maybe that comes with training and yeah, extra help in that process. But yeah, that can be difficult for some people, for sure.
Yeah, I do think it is. I think the current system is it's a bit broken. Interviews are more like popularity contests right now and who you connect with. And, if you and I, or you go into an interview and you connect with somebody because you're talking about similar past experiences or you're talking about being family, or parents or whatever, that very much inserts a lot of bias into that interview. And it's not right. But if we did a psychometric or behavioral assessment to identify what's needed in the role and how someone's hardwired, that's a very non-emotional, non-biased way to look at how is our alignment with this role. In the same way, if you did skill-based assessments and some sort of testing on their skills, I think that's again another non-biased way. Let's see where they're at. I'm a big fan of hire the will, train the skill, especially because I think the skills are evolving at such a fast rate right now with AI and automation and where we're going in the workplace that I think it's more important than ever to be hiring based on behaviors, characteristics, and natural traits.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I read the other day, I think, I think it's over 70% of companies feel like they just can't find good candidates. Do you think there's a talent shortage or are companies just simply not searching in the right way?
I think they're not searching in the right way. We know there's not a talent shortage, right? It's such I'd say it's a company's market right now versus 2021, 2022, when it was a strong candidates market. The talent is out there. Now, there's a lot of talent out there that needs to be reskilled or upskilled, and put into the current things. But if we can find the right, going back to characteristics, behaviors, and so if someone has the right drive and the right intelligence and the right alignment with what the company needs there, a lot of the skills can be taught. And it's interesting, we see companies going 6 months or whatever to find the right person for their job. And they're saying, oh, we're so frustrated. We can't find the right person. But if we found somebody that had the right behaviors, characteristics, and traits, and we spent that 6 months training them or upskilling them or improving, or adding the few little missing skills that they may have, we would be in such a better place. I think, again, ideally, you want to hire people that have the right relative skills or at least transferable skills and things like that. But I think the talent is out there. I think it's a matter of how we search and then how we rank them and evaluate them and how we look at them. But if I try to hire somebody, the other factor of that too is that they're often hiring somebody to replace somebody else. It's often I got to backfill this person that just left or whatever it may be. And you're just not going to find that institutional inside knowledge in a new candidate. You can't do that. Quite frankly, if you want to improve and grow and become something bigger or better or different tomorrow, I'm not sure you want to do that either. Let's hire somebody that's going to take us to the next stage that brings in a new set of experiences and skills and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, with the fast tech evolving now, do you think companies are adapting quickly enough to hire for modern skills?
I don't know. I'll speak generally and say no. I don't think they're adapting quickly enough. I think it's really tough to adapt quickly enough because of the rate of change. Here I am, the old guy again. I worked, on floppy disks and then eventually the smaller disks or whatever. I've seen these evolutions before of getting to where we are, but this is going at such a fast rate of change. Every day, these companies, the open AIs and the, other whatever, Google's and Gemini versus Gronk versus Claude versus Chat, every day they're competing and coming up with new ideas, new products. And somebody pointed me to a website recently about, there's an AI for that. And every day I get a new report of new AIs within the recruitment space. And there are hundreds every day. So I think it's really tough to keep up with. That said, that goes back to the idea of, do I want to hire somebody that is doing a skill of today? And maybe I have that need, but is that going to be what we need tomorrow? And so if I look at, the skills of recruiters from 20 years ago versus the skills of recruiters today, is it the same job? 20 years ago is a long time ago, so certainly not the same job, but even 10 years ago. And I'm not saying, we don't want people that can communicate and build trust and build rapport with their candidates and have great conversations and things, but there certainly is a different play to it today with data and knowledge and leveraging AI and, in their outreaches and being technically savvy as well. So I think the skills are shifting at a crazy fast rate, and I think it's tough to keep up. So I want someone on my team that is a good learner, that has good initiative, and that's going to go figure it out, and that's going to do their best to stay up or, on top of or in front of the tech changes as we change. Because I really don't know where we're going to be a year from now. I think recruitment's going through a major shift.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to ask you about that, about what you think about AI in recruitment and how far do you think it will go?
I love AI in recruitment, and we are a couple of years into, and in AI solutions that have helped us amplify our humans. I'm afraid that too many companies are going to try to automate and use AI to eliminate some of the things that I believe should still be done by humans. There are lots of good tools, or they're up and coming. I wouldn't say there's lots of good tools. There are tools coming out every day that, will do pre-screens with candidates, that will interview candidates, that will analyze them, that will do basic assessments on them, things like that. A lot of value in that. But I don't think it's quite ready to do it on its own yet. I don't want to fully automate. I still want humans driving the process, driving the experience, driving the AI. In terms of leveraging AI, we leverage AI now to do a lot of our sourcing and our outreach and our basic pre-screens, and then eventually it schedules interviews. But I'm leveraging that AI in order to get my recruiters on the phone or on video with more qualified candidates, so that they don't have to spend the time doing all of the constant outreaches and warming up emails and, warming up candidates and things like that, because they've got to play a bit more of a numbers game on that. But it's all about getting them on the phone with more candidates to have quality conversations. Now, the data we get from those phone calls, I think, again, there's an opportunity for AI to use that data intelligently for us to identify the right data points, and then to validate that and confirm that throughout our interviewing and recruitment process is going to be key. But I want to make sure that, at least in my world, trying to leverage AI to amplify the human, not to replace it. And I worry that others are trying to replace it. There are AI companies out there now. They're not recruitment companies, they're AI companies that are automating 90% or more of the recruitment process. And I'll be curious to see where that goes, but I don't believe in taking the human out.
No. Yeah, totally agree with that. I think recruitment is one of the industries that's so personable, isn't it? You always need that human touch. And yeah, I've seen the companies that are doing that also. Yeah, I don't think, people get interviewed by kind of avatars and knowing that AI, maybe it might work at maybe real lower level positions potentially, but I can't see that progressing to fully automated. It's just not going to happen, I don't think, especially in kind of more kind of higher up roles as well.
Yeah. I think there's just a lot of risk with that too, right? I mean, there's a lot of risk about, hey, is that the experience we want a candidate to have, let alone what's stopping the candidate from using AI to answer that
Yeah,
avatar, that chatbot, that whatever, right? I mean, we're already hearing stories about people that, turn on chat GBT on the side of an interview and turn on the voice version so that it can sit there and give the answers, and they can just sit
brilliant.
there and read the answers. So you could interview me for a job I'm not qualified for at all, and I could have built a GBT, a chat bot, or a bot to help me answer the questions as we go, and I could be sitting here staring at the camera and reading the answers, and probably get a job for something I'm not qualified for. So I think you've got a lot of risk. I think you've got a lot of risk in terms of the quality of people and the fake and the stuff like that. I think you've also got risk in terms of hurting brands and experiences. And, um, what is a culture if it's all AI? And so if it's AI that's doing all of your recruitment, is that part of your culture? I don't know. I'd like to say, as the old guy, I have the answers, but one thing I learn every year I get older is that it's how much less I know. There's so much to learn in this space, and there's going to be a ton of growth and evolution and innovation in the coming years. So I'll be excited to see where it goes. But I think we've got to use a little bit of both tech, AI, and human to drive the right sort of process and experience. Now, if we can use AI to fix our feedback loops with candidates and to better communicate and keep candidates in the update, fantastic, right? Because you and I have both heard it, how candidates don't like recruiters because they heard from them once and then never hear from them again, or they get ghosted or whatever it is. So there's a great chance. I'm sure a candidate wouldn't mind getting a AI message or avatar call, saying, "Hey, here's the update on the job. Just want to let you know where things are at," sort of deal. It's not as good as a human, but it's better than nothing. And if it's consistent, candidates might like that. So if there's places to improve the experience, like that, for instance, let's do it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's all about the candidate experience as well, isn't it? A lot of candidates won't want to be interviewed by a bot or an AI, would they? It's not, I can see that being a negative as well.
Yeah.
Sure. But what's your perspective on the work from home versus office leadership debate? What's your view on that? Where do you see that kind of heading now?
It's funny, Sam, at least it's funny to me, when the pandemic started and we sent our team home and went fully remote. And most of my team is based in the US, although we have hired in the UK now. So very excited about that. Which last time you and I spoke, I think we weren't there yet. So when we sent everybody home, I thought our culture was doomed. I didn't know how we could do it and how can we keep the energy and the camaraderie, the collaboration, that fun sort of thing. And it was challenging, especially during the pandemic, because there was a lot of extra stress and anxiety and things like that people were going through and challenges, and they were feeling cooped up and things. And then we came back to a hybrid and we played around with different types of hybrid schedules, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days in the office, remote flexibility. We played around with all that kind of stuff. And we've settled at Kelaca on a 3-2 hybrid with a lot of flexibility. You kind of schedule your 3 days in the office, but if you need to move one around, you move it around for personal or professional reasons. Certain teams are in the office on certain days so they can do their team meetings, ideally more face to face, things like that. But we also have some people on our team that are fully remote. I've been fully remote for the past year, living in the UK and leading the business remotely. And so I think there is a place for it. I think tech has made it much easier to do that. I think, in my humble opinion, though, is that we need a little bit of balance and a little bit of both. I've only been back to my US office once. I went back for 2 weeks in January, and it was interesting, right? It's the company I started, and there was new employees I hadn't met face to face yet, or I hadn't shooken their hand and shook their hand. That was interesting, and I wish I had gone back more often to see them. It was just tough to go back and forth. So I don't know. I think the end all be all is you're probably going to come into the majority in the hybrid space. We have certainly seen a return to office or RTO or whatever they call it coming back in. A lot of big companies are doing the return to the office call. So I think, if I had to put them in order, we'll probably have hybrid, then full-time office, and then full-time remote being at the bottom, which is different than it was pre-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, I would have said it was in the office and then hybrid and then remote. And now we've kind of switched. I think we put hybrid up front, but I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think hybrid all the way. I think companies need to be flexible. So they're losing out for being too rigid, I think. But you can see the argument for both sides. And I don't think there's a right and wrong answer. I think it suits what some company wants to, another company, it suit that individual, won't suit that individual. I think the hybrid works. I think there just needs to be a bit more flexibility. But yeah, you can see the argument for both sides.
Yeah, I think you said that spot on there, Sam. I think it depends on the company, depends on the individual, depends on the leadership. There's benefits. We saw, a pretty steep decline in our productivity numbers, our KPIs after a period of time. When they first went remote, they were great. And then they started to settle in and get a little comfortable with it. And then we saw a decline. And so again, we've watched those numbers. I understand why some companies do a return to the office because it's easier to manage and hold accountable and build that collaboration and do that sort of stuff. But I think that employees have said, have spoken up and said, we don't want that. We want the flexibility, and that's critical. And you're seeing employees taking less money to increase their flexibility or their work locations and things like that. And so I think that's where we find the blend. But there are some companies that seem to be sticking to their guns in the return to the office, and they're doing okay. Recruiting people. Maybe they lost some people when they first did the callback, but they're doing okay. They're big brands. They've done well, and so I don't want to say that it's not going to go back to the full in office being the leader, but I don't think so. I think hybrid's a good solution. That's what I'm going to do. And that's what we see a lot of our clients doing, unless, of course, it's a business or an industry, manufacturing or something like that, where you have to be on site.
Yeah, yeah, that's the other thing, isn't it? But yeah, Keith, it's been fantastic speaking with you again. For anyone listening, a candidate looking to hire or candidate exploring options, what's the best way to connect with you and your team?
Obviously, LinkedIn. I'm the only Keith Langbo in the world, so I'm relatively easy to find on LinkedIn. Or you can obviously look up Kelaca on LinkedIn or go to Kelaca.com, Kelaca.com. Love to have a conversation and learn more. So I'll say, Sam, to that point, we're not right for everybody. There's a lot of recruiters out there, and now having a good global perspective and a global business, it's interesting to learn the differences. So I hope that people go out there and just learn about the various types of recruiters that are out there, which ones are right for them. I would challenge the companies that use recruiters to ask them how they recruit for culture, because I think that's becoming bigger and bigger. It's always been important, but even more important with the evolution and the change that we're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Thanks for that, Keith. Appreciate it. This has been a thought leader recruiter, and we'll catch you next time.